Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who is becoming a non-binary parent. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
We are not professionals. We are not trained in this, so please take our advice as you see fit. We're just here to offer our humble musings, so hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love. All right, I'm going to dive right into today's letter. It is from a binary whose pronouns are she and they, and who's writing to us from parenthood. I'm a non-binary queer person that never wanted kids. Growing up, I was a tomboy with a bowl cut, and my pronouns were always ambiguous, she, them. When my nieces and nephews were born, they called me Uncle A, and their teachers struggled with this. Life was fun and carefree otherwise. 2 years ago, I canceled a tubal ligation I had planned because I never felt called to parenthood and I was single throughout my 30s. Most doctors wouldn't take my request seriously in my 20s because they said I might want to change my mind and wanted my partner's consent. I've been single most of my life, so I was very frustrated. Birth control pills and IUDs had too many complications to them. But when the time came that I could actually have the procedure, a call from my past came back to haunt me. It was a bone marrow registry I signed up for in college. I was the match to a baby, and they wanted to know if I was still willing. If yes, I needed to cancel any and all elective surgeries. I delayed the surgery for a year until last summer when I got the news that the recipient no longer qualified for donation. That same month, I also lost health insurance due to unemployment. I started dating this wonderful man that was 50 and wanted kids. A month in, I ended up at the ER with a mass in my abdomen that needed to be removed, and I was upfront with him that if he wanted kids, I wasn't the right partner. Months later, after several MRIs and ultrasounds, they found another mass, but since it wasn't cancerous, the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. I randomly took a pregnancy test only to find out that was it. Blood work and ultrasounds revealed I was beyond the point I felt comfortable having an abortion. It's been a super confusing time, especially being pro-choice, post-Roe protections, and we've decided to keep the baby. But I'm really struggling with people saying, "You're going to be a mom," and calling me mama. It wears on my soul. How do I preserve my non-binary identity and correct people? Parent is fine, but are there other options that are neither feminine or masculine? I grew up calling my parents by their first names, so I'd be fine with that, but it's hard to explain relationships to people more familiar with mom and dad roles. Any help on how to navigate this without making people feel comfortable, corrected, awkward would be so helpful. I really want to believe that we can define parenthood our way, but I also don't want this kid being teased or treated differently because of my identity. Thank you for all that you do to make this world a kinder, gentler, less lonely world for all of us JBU pod listeners. Ugh. That last line made me really emotional because I feel like that is at our core just the most simple mission that we have. So thank you for articulating that. Thank you so much for trusting this with this letter. As a cis person myself, I feel deeply honored that you trust me with it. And I think Sam and I are really excited to talk about the incredibly gendered world that is our world and that is parenting specifically. I can speak to my own experience with a partner who also did not want a gendered parent name. And we're going to get more into that in just a minute.
All right, everyone. Welcome back. A binary, I really appreciate you asking us this question. And I think we wanted to answer this because we really sort of felt connected to your story, and because it offers us this opportunity to have a conversation about the way that assumptions of gender play out, like not just in like the workplace or like in our schools or whatever, but also like how fucking gendered everything is related to childbirth, to parenting, to child rearing. Right. Like all of that stuff is so so gendered and want to just like name that even as somebody who identifies like as non-binary, I still make a whole lot of assumptions about the ways that gender plays out for people around me who are having children, right? And like the ways in which I assume like, oh yeah, mom and dad, or assume like, oh, you're pregnant, congratulations. You know what I mean? Like the excitement around it. And there's the narratives or the actual stories around pregnancy, around childbirth, around parenting are actually so much more complicated than the sort of rote things that we have memorized around how we're supposed to always respond when somebody tells us they're pregnant or tells us they have a baby or whatever it is, and how deeply ingrained all of that stuff is, and how we could all be better. It would be a much better world if we could all agree to stop making assumptions about gender and about what people's experience of parenting, childbirth, or even pregnancy, even insemination have been like.
Right. Yeah. So as Sam said, we were both like really called to this letter. And for me specifically, y'all know I became a parent within the last year, and my partner, my wife, Willow, who uses she, her pronouns, while she uses she, her pronouns, she identifies, she identifies as a woman, but she doesn't identify as a woman. You know, she jokes that she identifies most with a creature, like a genderless creature, but just, you know, in her lived experience, she hasn't felt compelled to call herself anything different or use different pronouns. However, when we got pregnant, it was an immediate conversation that became more and more apparent to us that my spouse did not feel connected to the name mom or mommy, or even the identity of a mother, very comparably to what you wrote in your letter, A-binary. That she doesn't feel like my baby's mother. She doesn't feel like Temple's mom. She feels like Temple's parent. And because of that, we decided to come up with a different parent name. It's funny, I didn't even think about our daughter calling Willow by her first name, but that is a great alternative. But in our experience, Willow wanted a name to be called, like a pet name like mom or mommy. So we came up with Malou, which is Willow's parent name. And so we are Mama and Malou, and we love this. We found a lot of joy in picking out this name. We found a lot of joy in the idea that our daughter will, that lots of people have moms and dads and parents, but our daughter is one of the only people who will have a Malou, We found a lot of joy in this, and we came up against a lot of unexpected tension.
For sure.
We are constantly called our daughter's moms. For the rest of time, unfortunately, we are going to be wished Happy Mother's Day together, even though we feel as though that is a day to celebrate me, and that we actually assigned Willow a whole separate day that we call Global Malou Day in October. And even our family
all of the
members
Malous celebrate that day, so
yes,
that means it's global.
Exactly. And even our family, who know Willow so intimately, who love and respect everything about her, can't wrap their minds around this idea that Willow's, fucking genitals or chromosomes don't automatically equate her parenthood identity. And even me, like, I love what Sam said in the beginning, like, even as a non-binary person himself, he still catches these gendered assumptions. I have found that I had to teach myself to replace mother with the word parent. And now I love the word parent. I even refer to myself as a parent because it feels free. It feels free of those gendered assumptions. But anyway, so I just wanted to share a little bit of our experience because even though Willow doesn't identify as non-binary, she has definitely come up against that. It's just a constant assumption. And like Sam said, we feel so lucky to answer this letter, if anything, for it to serve as a reminder to all of us that these gendered assumptions are everywhere, and they can, as you said very appropriately, that they wear on your soul because they just don't feel right. And honestly, the whole reason why I wanted to share Willow's experience with you and with our listeners, with her permission, is because we've found so much joy in the word Malou. It feels so authentic to her. It feels so special to her. And there are other people in our lives that felt more restricted by the mom and dad or mom and mommy or whatever sort of archetype that has been so prevalent, that they have come up to us and said, I wish I did something like that. I wish I felt like I could have chosen my own name, but instead I felt like I had to stay on this path. I feel like it would confuse too many people, yada, yada. And that is an unfortunate side effect of the way gender rules our world. Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, other than like there is discomfort there is like some crunchiness to being called Malou, meaning like we will forever have to explain what that is to her teachers, and our family members are still fucking mispronouncing it, which is like so disrespectful to me. But it was so obvious to us. It was so liberating and joyful. It can be both, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, of course it can be both, right? It can be such an exciting thing to find an identity or a way to express yourself, and also so frustrating to have that identity or that expression be unheard or ununderstood or whatever it is. Like, I think that this sort of deeper understanding that many folks are doing of themselves, and sort of this pushing back against like, wait a minute, this thing you gave me doesn't fit me. Why would I want it? Right? Can I have something different? Can be really liberating. And at the same time, it can also feel really isolating, because we live in a world where there's just a whole lot of assumptions, right? We're all sort of operating under like, this is the way that things happen. And it's like, actually, that's not true. That's not the way that things happen.
Yes.
We just have sort of decided that's like,
yeah. In my privileged cis life, this has been one of those times that I'm just so reminded of how much we think about gender. Do you know what I mean?
For sure.
When we decided to have a child, I didn't think I would be constantly in my mind correcting people when they say, oh, well, Temple's moms are blah, 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 blah. Well, she doesn't have two moms. Mm-hmm. She doesn't. And right. This is what I want to say. Sam is going to say a lot more articulate, lovely things in about 2 seconds. But the big thing that I want to say is that in our house, in the safety of our relationship and our family, it is so abundantly clear and undeniable that I am Temple's mother and Willow is Temple's Malou. It is undeniable. It is natural. And it is so true to us. Outside of this bubble, we will constantly be either, like you said, to our letter writer, correcting people, ignoring people, biting our tongue, just going with it for the fucking ease of it. But it will be constant. Like, you will be wished, you and Willow are going to be wished Happy Mother's Day for the rest of time. Yep. And that sucks. But But in this bubble of peace, this is an undeniable fact of our lives. And I want to offer that same affirmation to you, that this is an undeniable, unshakable part of your identity. And despite the constant chipping away at it that our society will do, Sam and I see it and we affirm it and we know that it is true.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, the things that we've been taught about gender, the things that we continue to enact around gender are harmful and awful. And I don't condone them at all. And I am working every day to try and change my and other people's understanding of gender through the podcast, through other work that I do, right? Like, it is deeply important to me that we get rid of these really weird things we have around gender, because it doesn't serve folks who are out and non-binary or out and trans, right? And it also doesn't serve people who are cis either, right? Like, people, it's a cage that keeps us all in it in weird and different ways.
Yes. And it doesn't serve Willow. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve our listeners.
No, absolutely. It doesn't serve Peter, who is a cis man, right? Like, the rules around gender are not actually serving him either. And at the same time, it is an undeniable reality that those systems of understanding of gender are going to be around us for a very long time, right? They are, we're working to dismantle them. Like, I know that you're doing it abinary. Sierra and I are doing it on this podcast. I know that a lot of our listeners are also challenging themselves and their loved ones around gender. But unfortunately, we exist in the system that has these prescribed notions of what gender is and isn't, and has these understandings of what we're going to do. And so Sierra's absolutely right that this is going to be something that you're going to come up against over and over and over again.
Yes.
So my question for you is, where are the places where you are filling up your cup, right? You know, like Sierra talked about, like at home, that's where things feel right. That's where things feel perfect. That's where things make the most sense. Where are those places, and how can you spend time fostering, growing, living in those places? And then for you, where are the lines around who and how you're going to be correcting folks or pushing back against folks, right? And it might be that when it comes to this person in this situation, you sort of bite your tongue and you're just like, it's fine. Yes. Wish me a happy Mother's Day. Like, goodbye, right? You know, like, we're going to be in this conversation for 3 seconds and then I can say goodbye to you, and it's not worth it, right? But are there places where you want to correct people, where you want to push people, where you need to sort of establish that boundary and push back? And it sucks that that folks like you who are non-binary have to be the ones to go through the world and push back against these different gender things, right? It sucks that is the reality that we're living in, and I wish that it weren't. And for me, accepting the radical honesty of the reality that we're living in helps me decide what's in and out of my values and boundaries. It helps me decide who I'm going to spend the most time trying to bring along and who I'm just going to be like, it's not worth this at this moment. It helps me preserve my sense of self to, instead of be like throwing myself against this, instead be like, I know that I'm going to receive this. And here are the things that I do when it happens. Here's the people I talk to. Here's the frustration that I express to people. Here's what it is. Doesn't make it feel easy ever, right? It doesn't mean it's like it's not a struggle. It doesn't mean that it's not hurtful in some way, but it helps me manage my own expectations so that I can spend more time on the things that love and fulfill and affirm me, and less time on trying to get my dentist to not refer to me as a man. You know what I mean?
That's so real. And thank you for sharing that. And to your point, you said, is there a way that I can navigate this without people feeling uncomfortable or corrected or awkward? And I think that's very kind of you to consider, and also an impossible expectation, because people are going to, particularly when it comes to gender, I feel like it is confusing, and it can be really scary for people to feel corrected about something that they feel is inherent to this world. Like, and I'm not even talking about people who believe like a man is a man and a woman is a woman. I'm talking about like the undercurrent of gender that exists in our lives, like the assumption that people who are pregnant are moms, period, or people who are parents want to be parents, or whatever, the undercurrent of gender is very hard to swim against sometimes. And so the expectation that you can do this without making people feel uncomfortable or awkward or corrected might just be too high of an expectation for them. It's a noble thing for you, but you are going to be correcting them. And that's okay, because you're saying, this is who I am. I totally agree with and echo what Sam said in terms of choosing where you want to invest that, where it's going to feel nutritious, where it feels valuable to you. But I also want to give you like a blanket permission that you can do that wherever and whenever you want. You can do it to your dentist if you want, but you might have to do it every single appointment, every time you go for your annual cleaning or whatever.
Right.
But maybe it's worth it to do for this future child's teacher, right? Somebody you're going to see ongoing for the year, or that the teacher is going to hear maybe the parent name, that you choose, or your actual first name. Like, hey, so-and-so, my child refers to me as A because I'm non-binary and I don't identify as their mother, I identify as their parent. To be honest, and this is another point of privilege, like we have been largely received well when we explain that Willow doesn't identify as a mom and wants to use a different word. But like, have I said that to my daughter's daycare people? No, because it's not worth my time. It's not worth my energy. And Willow would say the same thing. Like, this is more about her identity than mine. But it is my family. Yeah, but in general, it is okay to correct people when they point to something and say, this is you, and it's definitely not you. And it's okay for someone to feel awkward about that, because that's what change feels like. Change feels awkward. And it's kind of on that person whether or not they can accept that change with grace and humility, and recognizing that it's not about them. It's about honoring your personhood, and we all know that can be really tricky. And also, Sam and I just want you to feel like you have the right to exist like this, to push back against the assumption of maternity or paternity.
Absolutely. And to say that we see you in the struggle that this is, right? We see you in how painful and harmful this feels, and how disappointing it can feel to like look down the trajectory of your life and be like, oh, I'm going to have to keep correcting people about this. And that's really hard. And I want to say that you are in good company around it, right? Between all the folks who are also non-binary and parenting, folks who are parenting and don't want to be parenting, folks who are raising trans kids, right? Like there's a whole bunch of ways in which lots of us are having to push back against assumptions of gender that feel in some ways dehumanizing, in some ways might feel powerful to be able to push back. And unfortunate that's the role that many of us are having to play in this moment. And I want to also do this because, we have an audience of listeners, right, who can also choose to be doing different things in their assumptions around gender. And I know that lots of our listeners are, and I know that Sierra and I are on a daily basis as we answer these letters, as we read these letters, as we talk about relationships, as we read our books and watch our movies and all of that stuff as well. And it's just an opportunity to remind us all to notice when we're doing this stuff, notice when we're automatically assuming, or when we're assigning gender when we haven't asked, or when we are giving people names that don't fit them, and find a way to challenge that in ourselves, right? We talk about gender, talking about demonogamizing the mind, right? It's also about degendering the mind too. It's about how are we challenging these assumptions, not just being like, yeah, I love non-binary and trans people, but also about where is gender showing up in my life and how am I assuming things about myself and other people because of that? That is actually going to lead to a place where our letter writer, our beautiful, lovely a-binary, doesn't have to explain every single time why they don't like the word mom and prefer the word parent.
Yes. And I said at the beginning of this response that I asked my spouse if I could share this, personal, so deeply personal story about them. And Willow said, yes, I could share it. But I would have to tell a story about something that she's really proud of. And that is just, she just said, you have to tell them about the mug. And the first Christmas that I was pregnant, a friend of ours who actually Temple will grow up referring to as Uncle Jelly, who is non-binary and or identifies as a woman in some sort of gray area there. So I hear you on the uncle thing to our letter writer. But anyway, Uncle Jelly gave me a mug that says mama on it, right? And I love it. I drink coffee out of it. And for Valentine's Day last year, I designed and had a special mug printed for Willow that says Malou on it. And it's like her favorite thing in the world. If it ever breaks, I'm supposed to order like 10 more. And I share this because Willow asked me to, literally said, just tell them about the mug. But also because, like Sam said, this letter is an opportunity to speak to our listeners. If something doesn't feel right, if something doesn't feel like you don't have to use that thing. You don't have to wear that clothing. You don't have to use those pronouns. You don't have to use that title that somebody gives you. If it doesn't feel right, we are only limited by our imaginations, right? And I love that my beautiful wife was able to imagine a different name for herself that felt more true than mother and mom. And she's really fucking proud to be Temple's Malou. And I hope you all have the opportunity to choose something so authentic like that.
Absolutely.
And to our letter writer, we love you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to answer this letter. Good luck with this fucking crazy journey you're about to go on.
Absolutely. We wish you all the best and all the love. And thank you so much for writing. We love you.
We love you. All right. It is Friday, which means we want to send you on a blind date. Once a week, we want to set you up with something that we love, that we want to send you home with. And this week it is
a TV show called Poker Face. It is on Peacock, and it is a mystery show starring Natasha Lyonne, who is just so funny and so endearing and is 100% Natasha Lyonne all the time. This character is just her. But it's about this woman who can tell when people are lying. She has this innate sense to be able to call bullshit whenever anyone is telling her a lie. And she roams the country because she's on the run from somebody, and she's roaming the country, and she happens upon all of these murders and then can't help but solve them because she's why is this person lying to me? I don't understand.
Oh my God, funny.
And it's very cute. It's very funny. It's dark in some places. It's laugh out loud. Peter and I are watching it and just laughing at how ridiculous it is. And all of the plots are so intricate, and they all sort of come together beautifully by the end. And it's just, it's one of those shows that it's I am so excited for the fact that new episodes are coming out. I don't think any new episodes are coming out by the time that this episode is airing. So if you want to sign up for Peacock and binge watch it, you could do that right now. But it's just so good. And it's also episode of the week, right? She solves a different mystery every week, which I feel is so foreign in this time of the limited series where it's 6 episodes. That's basically a 7-hour movie. But instead it's just she goes to a place, she solves the mystery, she moves on to the next place, which is really fun. So it's called Poker Face, starring Natasha Lyonne. Oh, and it's written and directed by the guy who did Knives Out and Glass Onion. So very sort of kooky mystery solving. It's called Poker Face. It's available on Peacock. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Please remember that if you want more content from us, you can always support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise.
Please remember to follow, like, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media. Original music, recording, editing, producing, all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. And remember, y'all, if you don't want to have that haircut, if you don't want to wear that clothing, if you don't want to be called by that name, this is your one wild and precious life. We love you. We see you for all that you are and all that you could be. And we want you to feel like your most authentic and loved self. And if all else fails,
just break up.